With this thought resonating, I realised that we all have gifts within, but they're too often hidden. We have gifts we have never used, even though they are within our reach. If only we knew where to look, we would find them. These gifts are special. They might even change our lives and help make the world a better place. We all have gifts given to us by God. By Tyler Perry. Hello everybody and welcome to this week's episode of the Tory Talks podcast. I am exhausted. I'm tired as hell. The heat is not helping whatsoever. And to be quite honest with you, I feel like there's so much going on in the world right now that even just processing that is exhausting. However, I feel very blessed to be able to deliver this episode to you and obviously just chop it up as we do bi-weekly in the podcast. And I'm really grateful to be able to be recording. My mother-in-law is actually looking after the baby, so it's enabling me the opportunity to be able to record, and I feel very blessed to have a village. Something I will say is when it comes to motherhood, you have to get used to being tired as being a temporary state of being. I am told that things get easier and you get to sleep a bit more, but I'm one of these people that used to sleep until midday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the weekend. To kind of have this erratic type of sleep is a lot for me, but I am trying each day and obviously still kind of getting better from giving birth, but we move. So in this episode, I kind of want to talk about contracting, and I didn't know I'd be talking about it in this episode, but as the ancestors so have it, here we are. But more so, I want to just be really, really clear, and I say it a lot, but maybe it's something I need to just say at the beginning of every episode, I don't know. The Tory Talks podcast isn't just for people in the corporate world, it's for people within the working world. And I will always choose black women first because I'm a black woman. But just to be clear, this podcast is for anyone in the working world, and I speak from the position of a black woman. My experiences, my words of comfort, learning lessons, any wisdom that I have to share, and also as much as I can, I share the blueprint to light up the path of all our successes, because each and every one of us deserve to be successful, but also understand how to navigate a space like the workplace, which I often refer to as the jungle, sometimes often referred to as the wilderness. But I try as much as possible to create a safe space for us to have open conversation. But I have had so many people either reach out to me or have benefited from the podcast, and it's from any industry. You don't have to be in the corporate world. I'm no longer in the corporate world and haven't been for some time. So it wouldn't be an accurate reflection to think that this podcast is just for people in the corporate world. It really isn't. It's for people in the corporate world and in the working world at large as a whole. So I wanted to say that. Also as well, do you know, it's really interesting how privilege works in this society. And we'll see it play out in the workplace where people, well, in my experience, because I work in a white-dominated industry, where white people consistently, persistently always tap into the white privilege in order to get ahead, to crush, devalue, and just to assert authority in predominantly, in my experience, white spaces. And I definitely think in politics, what a lot of what we see in politics happens in the workplace. I mean, where do we find understanding of politics and how to move and navigate politics? Is it not in the centre stage of politics that then finds itself in the workplace? And sometimes I feel like whatever happens in politics, it's only a matter of time before we see it at work, or we already do see it at work. And when you're tracing where this started from, it's the example of kind of people in the centre stage basically demonstrating bad behaviour and then it being taken on by people of privilege in the workplace. And you know, Boris Johnson, I mean, I've been recording this podcast now for almost 3 years. And, you know, during lockdown, you know, we were here on the podcast, we were talking about certain things, and, you know, there was a lot that happened within politics, but also we were able to see that some of these politicians do not only not give a shit about us. I'm still waiting for Matt Hancock to share with us what happened to his grandma, who was the first person to actually have the COVID vaccine administered, and she was 95. Since that day, we haven't heard or seen her since. And politics is very much about using people as sacrificial lambs so that other people can step on other people to be seen. And something that I was speaking to Kay about is the idea that, you know, a lot of people in politics, specifically in my view, Boris Johnson, he's doing everything that he has done has been about his legacy. Now, as black people, when we think about legacy, we think about, well, not we, I think about, my children, my children's children, what I have done with my life to create a better life for my children. And that's, to me, what I view as legacy. I feel like with Boris Johnson, legacy is all about him. And it's really deep rooted in narcissism as far as I'm concerned. I don't think Boris really cares about kind of family and how legacy operates in the way I see it. I think Boris Johnson is about Boris Johnson. It's about when he dies, what he is known for. And I think legacy has to be more than that. It has to be more than just you. It has to be the foundation that you create for those that come after you. And Boris Johnson has been economical with the truth, been lying, dishonest, and had, you know, investigations done about, you know, Partygate, what happened during lockdown, his decision making, all types of things. Bearing in mind, Dominic Cummings has been quiet, so I assume he is, you know, maybe either pulling strings or watching what's happening and maybe throwing. I just see him operating in the shadows when it comes to Boris, because he did say, you know, he kind of implied that he would kind of deal with Boris, and Boris did dispose of him or cause such an issue that Dominic Cummings felt that he couldn't stay. But I always said to you guys that Dominic Cummings was very clear about going to war with Boris, so I'm not surprised a lot of the things that we're seeing now with Boris, and I wouldn't be surprised if Dominic Cummings is behind a lot of them. I digress. Boris Johnson has allegedly lied, and I have to say allegedly, but you will know where I stand with when it comes to Boris. And he has been forced to resign as an MP, and effectively he's basically been forced out of the Tory government and the Tory party. And he's just signed a deal with the Daily Mail to become a columnist in the amount of £1 million. And what makes me sick is how dishonesty, how this level of ruthlessness is rewarded to those who are tap dancing on their privilege to be able to get ahead, and at the expense of crushing people who are seemingly not on the same level as them. This is a man that was the Prime Minister and basically made a caca of COVID, and we are all paying the price for it now. We literally all are. This is a person who single-handedly told people not to leave their houses and put certain restrictions in place, and he was living it up and partying at number 10. You know, it's just so crazy to me how deplorable behaviour is always rewarded, and it makes you think to yourself, like why do these people get to behave in a manner and then get rewarded? But I'm comforted by karma and good conscience. And I believe that everybody who sows karma will have to reap what they have sown, whether that is good or bad karma. And what may seemingly be a reward could actually be an opportunity for him to showcase his stupidity. And him signing this deal for 1 million, I'd like to see what this column will hold, because if it's anything like his appearance, it's not going to last long. His appearance is a mess, so I expect everything about him to be a mess as well. Or maybe he'll just get a ghostwriter to write this column, I don't know, but I'll be interested to see how that comes up. But I don't know if you remember, within Parliament there was an MP called Dawn Butler, and I think she's the MP for Brent. Anyway, she basically called Boris Johnson a liar, and she was basically shouted at in Parliament to apologise, and then she was basically told to leave. And they tried to basically humiliate her, shame her, and this particular Parliament that was in session was televised, and the way they treated her was just so deplorable, because apparently you're not allowed to call somebody a liar when they're a liar. Later then to discover, after having these various investigations that Boris has had to go through, he is actually a liar. And she posted something about her, you know, the incident that happened in Parliament, and that she should be owed an apology. And it just, first of all, when she posted it, it was a reminder of what her experience was, because it's so easy to forget when they basically tried to drown out the sound of the truth. But also as well, I remember watching it thinking, we all know Boris is a liar, but because of bureaucracy and politics, effectively, you can't actually say the truth without somebody basically calling you a liar for saying the truth, which is just wild. Anyway, so it made me remember something that had happened to me, whereby I genuinely think that there are some white people who have such a big problem with black women that even apologising to a black woman when they are wrong is too much for them. Because I feel like there are some white people that think if they apologise when they've done something wrong to a black woman, they're also apologising for slavery. But me, I take my reparations where I can get them personally. But before I give the example of something I've experienced that was quite similar, I also want to say, and I want to caveat that Dawn Butler is owed an apology for how she was treated, because she was saying the truth, and it's later come out that Boris has been lying. But it was just too easy to treat her in the way that they did, knowing that if it was a white woman, they would have never treated her like that, because they would have played into fragility. And I will continue to say I'm sick and tired of how society sees fragility in every other race of woman apart from a black woman. And that in itself is aggressive, it's violent, it's demoralising. And this is the reason why, for me personally, I have gone past the stage in my life and my career where I have previously operated in a space of fear that if I assert myself I'll lose my job, fear of asserting myself full stop, being made to feel as though using my voice is aggressive at any tone. I'm past that stage of tap dancing into what makes white people or non-black people comfortable with having to interact with me, or have or where people who are in spaces with me, I have to make them feel comfortable because they're intimidated by my race. I'm past that stage in my life now. I believe that everyone deserves to be respected, but if you disrespect me, do not expect me to be silent, and I will see it as an attack, because you don't see fragility when it comes to black women, and if you're not prepared to see fragility in black women, I will see fragility in myself, and I'll defend myself. That's my position. One of the roles that I was working in when I was contracting up until March, there was one of my stakeholders, and basically you have often stakeholders you work with that maybe because they're senior or whatever think that they can operate in a certain way. And when you're in a commercial space like I am in, depending on your role, you are meant to be what, and it's an industry word that they use. It's almost like the commercial conscience of certain stakeholders, especially operating as a commercial contract manager, as I do. And basically he was operating in a way that wasn't honest, and he was dishonest about the progress of the project. He was spending over and above what he was allowed to. He was basically influencing an external supplier to go outside of process so this particular stakeholder can get what they want. And obviously, having extensive experience in my field, I can very much see a project end to end, and I know the risks, I know where my stakeholders sit, I know what's a good stakeholder, bad stakeholder in between. And basically I had tried to have a meeting with this particular stakeholder, put a meeting in the diary, managed to get one, and basically highlighted what my concerns were, and was very positive in wanting to collaborate to make the project better, and also so that we can remove a lot of the risk. And I remember having this conversation over Teams, cameras off, and as I'm basically explaining to him where the risk sits, he interrupts me several times, and he says, "Toya, I don't want to have this conversation with you. I don't have to answer to you. No, I'm sorry. No. As far as I'm concerned, this is a stupid conversation and I am done. I've had enough of this. This is disgusting." And he was screaming at the top of his lungs. Now, I don't know what is disgusting about doing my job. Are you disgusted that it's a black woman doing her job? What is all of this? So as he's shouting, what he's not realising is I'm not stupid. And in his rage, he didn't notice that one of my colleagues who is in my team had joined the call, because I knew with this particular stakeholder, I needed a witness. It's not that I needed support, I just needed a witness. And I chose one of my colleagues who is a white male. And this white male is somebody who I had been training anyway, because they had a bit of a knowledge gap. But I knew that if this was to go left, no one's going to believe this black woman. But what you will believe is this black woman who has a witness, and not any witness, a white male as a witness. So as this stakeholder is losing it, and I'm quiet, he then realizes I'm quiet. And then he starts blubbering. He says, I've got to go. And he terminates the teams, because at that point he's realized I've got a witness. So I then obviously came off teams, and then my teams rung, and it was actually my colleague. My colleague said he heard everything. And he said to me, it's unacceptable. So I thought, you know what, Toya? This is one of those situations where you're going to have to teach an example to this stakeholder so he can tell all the other stakeholders he works with not to fuck with me. So I said to my colleague, and we're going to call the colleague Ryan. I said, Ryan, to be honest with you, the reason why I've just gone quiet is I cannot believe the manner in which I've been spoken to. And to be honest with you, I'm actually quite distressed that somebody of his seniority thinks it's okay to speak to anybody like that, irrespective of who he is and the position he holds. And not just as a colleague, but as a woman, as a human being, I just expect to be dealt with a level of respect. And not only was there no respect, but the level of disrespect was just too much. He said, Toy, what should we do? I said, well, I want to speak to our manager, but to be honest, I think I just need a bit of time. But what I will say is, would you mind speaking to this manager? We call the manager Vanessa. I said, would you mind speaking to Vanessa? And then I will catch up with her a bit later. But I think it's important that she hears from you, especially I just need to go for a walk. So Ryan was like, all right, cool, no problem, Toya. And I'm going to say this to you. I wasn't shocked, I wasn't disappointed, and I wasn't angry. Because I'm used to, especially white men, operating in that level of violence. I'm used to them operating in that violence, especially when it comes to a black woman. And a lot of the bad experiences I've experienced in the world of work has been at the hands of white men. And I've shared various examples of this throughout the podcast episode. But I've also learned that in order to deal with such behaviour, you have to operate from a position of not just strength, but you have to understand how to navigate these spaces without actually confronting these spaces in the way that they expect us to. Long story short, my boss Vanessa rang me up. She was so annoyed, concerned, and literally within 2 hours she'd already spoken to her boss. Her boss basically sent a meeting invite to the stakeholder that I had that exchange with and his boss, and basically my boss's boss, so Vanessa's boss, then put a meeting in my diary, a meeting with my boss Vanessa and my colleague who was on the call to discuss what happened. And when Vanessa's boss heard from me, she was apologetic. I've never been in an organisation before where they dealt with it as quickly as they did. Now, it could have been because the stakeholders done it before, or it could just be they're quite progressive in that they want to nip things in the bud, or it could just simply be that my colleague Ryan is a white man and he basically was vouching for a situation that happened, and they just took it a lot more seriously than they ever would have done if it was me. And I tend to lean into that more. Maybe I'm skeptical, or maybe I'm just very real with how white spaces operate in my industry and just past experience. I don't know. So then my boss's boss puts a meeting in my diary for later on in that week. And then she comes on the Teams and she says, I've spoken to said stakeholder and he's going to apologise, not just to you, but also to Ryan, because Ryan was on that call and he was visibly quite shaken, because I had a Teams call with him on camera and I could see when he was explaining what happened, he seemed quite distressed. And what I found amazing is that my boss's boss could see the distress in a white man who was just a witness, but she can't hear the distress in me when I'm explaining to her what happened, but whatever. I'm telling you, when that situation happened, I was told that the stakeholder was going to apologise to me. I could have told you and given you all my life savings and told you that there was no way that that stakeholder would apologise to me. Till today I'm talking to you, that stakeholder has never once apologised. And Ryan even asked me, a few months before I left, he asked me if the stakeholder had apologised, and I said, Ryan, why do you expect him to apologise? He goes, well, because he's been asked to. I said, well, number one, if it was sincere, he would just apologise without being asked. But number two, there's no way he's going to apologise. I said, his level of aggression is the type of aggression where somebody knows that they can leverage their position, seniority, or maybe even length of service to be able to get away with murder. So for him, apologising to a black woman is even beneath him. There's no way he's going to apologise. And I said it to Ryan just like that. And I was right. But for me, it wasn't just about the apology. I didn't care. I wanted that stakeholder to know that now the seniors know his behaviour is deplorable. And every interaction I had with that stakeholder after that incident had happened, his behaviour was different. It was almost like he was trying to apologise by displaying good behaviour. Whereas for me, I feel like we're not going to lean into the toxicity here of a lack of an apology and change behaviour only. There needs to be an acknowledgement of that bad behaviour by verbally apologising. That's what an apology is. It's an acknowledgement of whatever behaviour, whatever was done that is deemed as unacceptable by the recipient of that behaviour, and an acknowledgement that that was upsetting or whatever the situation was, and that, you know, you acknowledge or receive what that person has communicated. That's what an apology is. And I've gotten to a stage in my career where I understand how white spaces and non-black spaces work. So I have no expectation. But what I will not accept is to be disrespected. I'm a contractor, but you better understand, you're not going to treat me like shit. It's not going to happen. And there'll be more than one way to skin a cat. And he got skinned. Because I think, from his perspective, he would have never thought that I would have said anything. He damn well didn't expect there to be a witness on the call. And what ended up happening was he got reprimanded. And I think that that probably attacked his ego more than him probably having to apologise. But the act of a lack of an apology just shows you where some white people sit. So when I saw what Dawn Butler had posted, in my head I was like, there are so many situations where we are owed apologies and we know we're not going to get them. She knows she's not going to get an apology, but she's putting it out there that she's owed one. We don't always get what we're owed. We don't. And I'm not saying it's acceptable, but sometimes we have to understand as black women how to navigate these spaces and still get what we want. Because after that situation happened, it didn't stop me from having my contract extended. Do you understand? I think some of us are so intimidated by some of these spaces. It stops us from advocating for ourselves, because we feel like if we do, then something will be either taken away, or we won't get treated well, or get what we're expected to get, or what we deserve. And sometimes I feel like, yeah, you may be right. You know, advocating for yourself comes with a risk, but the biggest risk of not advocating is towards my mental health. Every time I stick up for myself by following a process or navigating through, I definitely see a boost in my confidence, but also I respect myself enough to be able to advocate for myself, to ensure that I'm in a healthy space, number one, but I can operate in an environment which is conducive for work. And sometimes it's not about whether I receive the apology or not, because I think some of you are so hung up on getting an apology that you're not thinking about being strategic. The fact that he was spoken to was enough for me, because he now knows that people are watching him. He knows. He now knows that if he does one false move, he's in trouble. And that was enough for me, because for me, my objective is to get to the bag. I just want a healthy space in which to get to the bag. I feel like some of you are waiting on an apology. That's never going to happen. And I think some of us need to just get comfortable with other forms of karma or other forms of payback, if that makes sense. So yeah, I thought I'd share that. And I hope somebody can take comfort in what I've just shared there. So obviously I have spoken about the Contracting Masterclass, which is coming soon to the toytalks.com website. The Contracting Masterclass is so important because it's an opportunity for me to share my blueprint, but also to demonstrate that you can be in most fields and be a contractor, project manager, nurse, doctor, teacher. You can contract your services either through a limited company outside of IR35 or through an umbrella company which is inside IR35. All these things I go into detail about within the masterclass. I think it's important that I do the Contracting Masterclass because, number one, I've been able to become a six-figure earner by being a contractor, but also I understand quite extensively how the commercial space works, and it has further reinforced my ability to see myself as a business. And I'm very blessed to have two businesses that I own and run, and also as well I'm able to contract my services out and maximize my earning potential. And it hasn't always been easy, but what it's done, it's given me an opportunity to also negotiate on my own terms as much as possible. And also I think what it's given me is the freedom to understand how the world of work actually works and operates. So within the Contracting Masterclass, I will also be discussing agencies and umbrella companies, like how to work with agencies as a contractor, which I think is slightly different to when you are a perm member of staff or looking for a perm role with an agency. Umbrella companies for roles that are inside IR35, what to look for in an umbrella company, how they work. I have preferred choice umbrella companies that I work with, and also setting up a limited company, like how to set it up, what to expect through a limited company setup, why you would set one up. And I link it back to obviously IR35 and working outside of IR35, but I go into a lot of detail to share the blueprint because I've been contracting for slightly over 7 years now. And I had to learn trial by error, and I have literally charted how I've been able to become a contractor. And now what I've done is I am sharing it with you because I feel as though in order for us to truly see ourselves as a business and actually reach the full epicenter of success, you have to understand what opportunities are out there for you. You've got people who have been in roles for 10, 15 years, and that's one organisation and that's the only role they know. And I don't think it's healthy, because what you've done is you've overcommitted yourself to an organisation that can get rid of you like that. Redundancies are real. You have to understand what other revenue streams are open to you. I think the Contracting Masterclass isn't just for the world of work, it's for freelancers as well. That's why I've called it the Freelance Interim and Consulting Masterclass, because you've got content creators who work freelance and they don't understand how to contract or what mechanisms to use. And these are all things, again, that I'm going to teach you in the masterclass. Also, how to revamp your CV so it's more contractor, interim and consulting focused, so that you can then apply for roles and be getting those roles and be interviewing, because there's a certain way that your CV needs to be delivered in order for you to, start having these interviews and have conversations with agencies or whatever third party you're hoping to speak to as part of your contracting, interim and consulting process. I also provide templates, so there's going to be some templates that you're able to use exclusively to the Tory Talks website, and I talk about the contracting culture, how to position yourself as a business in contracting. So this also includes how you develop relationships within contracting, the types of relationships that are beneficial to you as a contractor. I also talk about student loans. If you owe a student loan, how then do you pay it if you're a contractor? So again, it leans into whether you're inside or outside of IR35. How to select an accountant. I've not had the best experience of accountants up until recently, where I've got a really, really good accountant. But going through the process of not having good accountants has been really good as well, because I get to teach you and share with you all what to look for in a good accountant, what makes a good accountant, and how to avoid like the red flags that may come up with certain accountants, and also the ability to manage your accountant. So using bookkeeping to be able to do that. Again, I discussed that in the masterclass. Also negotiating a contract as a contractor. I recently negotiated a contract with a company I was working outside of IR35, and it's things to do with my deliverables and things like that. And they were asking me for all types of things that I just didn't think were appropriate for the contract, but I was able to do that quite freely. Some people are so afraid to negotiate because they think that if they start negotiating anything, a role will be rescinded. But I would say that you have to have so much more confidence in yourself as a contractor to fully understand how to operate and get the best terms. I talk about contractor confidence as well. Contractor confidence leans into the whole seeing yourself as a business, but how do you develop as a contractor in terms of career progression and things like that? I've been able to do that quite quickly. So within the first 2 years of contracting, I became a senior. And everything else since then has been about me developing into a subject matter expert, which I comfortably can sit here and say that to you. But also, I've had the opportunity to work for amazing companies, international companies that seemed so far away when I was a perm. But I've realised that becoming a contractor has enabled me to climb up the career ladder quite quickly, because I'm not having to do training courses. I'm not having to deal with the politics of perm, whereby, people expect you to effectively kiss people's ass. Sometimes it's not always about the work that you deliver as a perm. Sometimes it's about longevity, how long you've been. Whereas as a contractor, it doesn't work like that. I definitely will say that, the commercial space is changing, and people forget COVID and lockdown. It's like people forget every winter that passes and people survive, they forget. I've had the ability to work remote for the last 2.5 years, and it's been amazing. But I have seen a shift in the commercial space where they're asking you to come into the office now. I know one massive company has basically said to its employees, you need to be in 5 days a week. People are past that stage of going into work 5 days a week. And if you allow that to happen, you're allowing these organisations to reaffirm their control over you. As a contractor, I've been so blessed to be able to negotiate my terms, and one of them has been working remotely. Now that I've become a mother, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to going into someone's office once a month, because I think it's healthy for me, just because, you can sometimes be trapped in a bubble, and I think I see that more within motherhood. I feel like if I hadn't had a baby, I would continue to be remote and it'd be a non-negotiable. Whereas maybe once a month, once a quarter, I wouldn't be too opposed to it. And also I still have friends in London. So that's how I'm kind of balancing it. But I would only go into the office for a reason. I'm not going in there so you can see the whites of my eyes. It's bullshit. If I have to come in, say, once a month, there has to be a reason. If there's not a reason, then that month I don't go in. Again, being able to be a subject matter expert in what you do, be best in class in what you do, requires you to also invest in yourself. And I think a great thing about being a contractor is I can pay for certain courses and accreditations to get accreditations. I can do all those things, and I am in charge of the progression of my career. Again, these are things that I'm going to talk about in the masterclass, because being a contractor still means that you have to stay abreast of things that change within your industry, and you have to, to earn the maximum amount of money means also reinvesting some of that money in yourself to continue your development. Whereas when you're a perm, they dangle development as a benefit to a job, and they have mandatory courses. So you have to almost be your own personal development person. And I think it's something that I have come to appreciate. There's certain courses and stuff that I have done and things that I have planned in the pipeline so that I can remain a subject matter expert, so that I can negotiate better terms and get better day rates and be able to get better roles in better organisations. So it is a cycle. Within this masterclass, these are all the things I'm going to be teaching. For those of you who have listened, bought, downloaded some of my masterclasses that are already in the catalogue, I've had so many testimonials from so many people, and the common consensus is, this is brilliant. I didn't know this. Wow. There's so many people I've been able, through the masterclasses, to help support their development. I've had a few people relocate to the Middle East just because they were able to take the time to not only invest in themselves through the masterclasses, but be able to see things differently, be a bit more strategic in their approach to their career, which has led to development that has led to, you know, all these opportunities that a lot of people have been able to benefit from. And I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud that that has come from the Toy Talks masterclasses, because society depends on you to not know your value. Because if you do not know your value, you'll accept crumbs. And if you accept crumbs, it means that you are willing to take the barest of minimums, and that should be enough. They don't want you to know what your worth is, because if you know what you're worth, you'll ask for more. If you ask for more, that means you understand your worth and you create opportunities. Opportunities give you options, and options gives you leverage. Leverage is power. Can you understand how this cycle works? I want to talk about the pros and cons of being a contractor, because there are pros and cons of being a perm and a contractor. There is. Now, I'm not sitting here saying I would never, ever, ever do perm. I don't think you can ever say never, because, for example, the commercial space at the moment is very quiet in my sector because it's the summer. People are holding on to their budgets, wanting to hold on until after the summer period goes. And also as well, I feel like it's been an employees market for a long time. It's moving to an employers market. So that shift has meant that the commercial space has been a bit quiet. And I say to a lot of my friends, you have to be willing as a contractor to understand how to pivot. So you can still be a contractor and know that the commercial space is not great and say, right, I'm going to take on a perm role. And you don't have to tell the people that, you know, in an interview, I'm only having this perm role for 6 months. You know that. You don't have to tell them that. And I have this one friend and she does it really well. When her space is quiet, she'll take a perm role. And she might take it for 6 months. Yeah? And then when the contractor market picks up, she'll go back to contracting. And she's very smart in how she puts it on her CV. That's all I'm going to say. She's extremely smart. And she's extremely smart in terms of referencing. Honest, but smart. And these are the things that I am happy to teach in the masterclass. How to work smartly. Some of you are just all too willing to open your nyash, and it's mad. And I don't know why a lot of you are au fait with sending yourself down the line, when in fact you just have to be strategic. And I can put my hand on my heart and say I've been strategic, honest, strategic, and I'm not going to apologize for my successes. So in an interview, when they ask me what I've delivered on a project, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to get that trumpet and I'm going to blow it very loud. so yeah. Also in the masterclass, it's also about being tax efficient, creating the infrastructure around yourself, streamlining your skill set. I talk about state pension, tax codes, how to manage the tax side of stuff on a personal level as well, because you may have an accountant if you're outside of IR35, but if you don't have an accountant, i.e. you're through an umbrella company, you still need to manage your tax code and interface with HMRC. So I'm going to teach you all of that, especially how to interface with HMRC, because recently I overpaid in tax. So in February, I got a letter from HMRC. I completed it, provided them with the documents they wanted, didn't hear from them. When I gave birth, I contacted HMRC and they said to me, it's going to take them 9 months to process, so effectively till November. So because I know how to interface with HMRC, I put in a complaint. Within 3 weeks, HMRC got in contact with me and they rang me last week, and my complaint was assigned to a case manager. And again, because I know how to interface with HMRC, and I was told that I basically am owed about £4,000 from HMRC, and they'll be processing that next week. Now, I knew I was owed that money, and that's why I didn't push for it, because I saw it as HMRC are literally saving that money for me. But if I didn't assert myself as a contractor, knowing how to interface with HMRC, it would have taken me not just a long time to get that money, but would I have been aware that I was owed that money? Again, as a contractor, understanding how to manage contracting and create a correct infrastructure around yourself means that any money that's owed to you, not only will you get it back, but you will also be able to pay adequate tax so that you're not shocked when you get a letter from HMRC. There is a whole space about contracting that people do not even know. And it's not in the benefit of a lot of organisations or people who are not for the progression of our community to teach. Because you sure as hell are not going to learn it in a school. No one's going to sit you down and say, this is how to do it. But the Tory Talks podcast is about being progressive. And I am about, sowing the seeds of progression, of success into my community so that we can all benefit. You see, it's really easy for society to just have us work until we drop dead. But what I have wanted for myself for a very long time is I want to work smart, make as much money as possible, and invest, acquire certain things, and retire when I want to, and define what retirement means to me. Because retirement to me doesn't mean giving up work. It means that I can put certain things in place so that even if I don't work, say, in my industry anymore, I'm able maybe to teach, I may be able to, go into a different field if I want to. I don't necessarily believe in the traditional retirement because society doesn't create the traditional retirement anymore. They want you to work till you're dead. So if you're dead, you're not retired, are you? And again, I think that's, it's a podcast episode. Let's talk about what retirement looks like, because if you want to sow the seed of what retirement should look like for you, you need to do them from now. So for me, contracting has enabled me the ability to sow the seed of a future retirement and what that looks like. And part of that picture is that it doesn't happen here in the UK. I'm just going to use the UK for what I can, make money, assets, all this stuff. And the idea is that I should be able to relocate to a completely different country and do whatever it is I want to do. For example, teach. And who knows, the Tory Talks podcast could be fundamental to that, because I actually really love teaching and sharing the blueprint to success. I never thought that me, as a child of first generation immigrants, would be able to sit here with you saying I have all these assets, I'm a 6-figure earner, I have 2 businesses, and I have all this stuff around me that I do, and I'm really, really proud of it. I'm proud to sit here and say to you all that because of contracting, I was able to fully fund my own maternity. When you're able to save over 100 grand for your maternity, it's a blessing. And still be able to get statutory maternity because I've had more than one contract, and I've had one inside and outside of scope. So the role that was inside of scope, I can get statutory maternity. They don't tell you that. They don't teach you that. And I haven't touched my savings, by the way. I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you how to contract and benefit from maternity. But you have to be able to approach contracting with a certain mindset. And you're going to get uncomfortable to be comfortable in the long run. And I think it's important that I did this episode because I feel like I come on here and I talk about contracting and I talk about when I was a perm and everything. But it's important that people in different industries know that they can also do it too. Contracting is a mindset. You have to be prepared to change your mindset. And because of that, I'm really so blessed to have been approached by someone that I know. And the person said to me, listen, Toya, I'm a qualified lawyer, but I'd like to become a contractor. And funny enough, I was doing the contracting masterclass, and I've decided to mentor her into contracting, which means everything that I will be delivering in the masterclass, I'm going to use with this young lady. And the idea and the objective is that I can mentor her into contracting. And if it's successful in terms of, I feel comfortable that not only her mindset has shifted, but I have equipped her and armed her with all the knowledge and the blueprint, and she goes on to become a contractor in her own right, because again, I will arm her with everything she needs, but the choice is her to step to or to step into. But if this case study works, then I will consider mentoring people into contracting and having like a program. So, you know, having the objectives, the actions and all those things in place, like a solid structure, and then have a service where I can mentor you into contracting. You'll pay a fee, and then, you know, I would work with somebody over a period of a month and mentor you into contracting. And I can't sit here and say you're going to get a contract, because there has to be a psychological contract that you sign with yourself, that if I give you the tools, then you'll use them. I can't make you use them. I can't sit there next to you in an interview for a contractor role. I can't do that. I can equip you, but then you have to do the work. And this is what success requires from you. You have to do the work. If you're not going to do the work, no one's going to do it for you. And this is why sometimes I get emails in the mailbox, and I have podcasts, I have masterclasses, I've got templates within the masterclasses, and yet some people still do not know how to manage conflict in the workplace. And I can't sit beside you and say, do this, do this, do this, do this. This is why I don't do like CV writing and things like that, because you have to own your career, you have to own your CV. As part of the mentoring into contracting, she's doing up her CV, and then I'm going to amend it so that it's more contractor based, and then she's going to have to review it. I can't write it for her. I can make suggestions, and then you've got to decide to own your CV the same way you need to own your career. Some of you are not ready for the mindset shift, but then you'll question people's decisions to contract. You'll criticize and try and find negativity in seeing black women thrive. I'm still shocked about the black woman that was basically dragged on Twitter when she shared that she's on six figures as a contractor, and she basically said, you know, and I'm paraphrasing here, you know, you can do it too, but you're choosing not to. You're being lazy, and people are like, oh, how could you do this? Da, da, da. Somebody went out of their way to contact a company she was working for, and basically said, oh, this person is on social media sharing how much she earned. You shouldn't work with her. This is what is happening in our society. And I can almost guarantee that the woman that did that was a black woman. I can almost guarantee it. Until, as black women, we fix the attitude in our own community, we've got a long way to go. The reason why people do not share successes or share how they got to somewhere is because they don't want to feel as though they have to apologise for successes, and they don't want to feel like somebody is going to try and take what they have worked hard for. That's the truth. But I want to share with you why I share my blueprint. I share my blueprint because I'm bloody good at what I do. I'm bloody good at it. I want to share my blueprint because the more we share, we remove the barrier that becomes an obstacle of success. If we keep our success a secret, the white man, the non-black person, is going to use that to their advantage to manipulate us to continue to work for them blindly, give blood, sweat and tears, and give us crumbs. I don't want crumbs. I want the whole meal. And because I want the whole meal, I know I have to share. Because if I share with you, you'll share with this one, you'll share with this one. I've said to you all before, I've never paid for any marketing for Toy Talks. Because I trust that the people that listen to Toy Talks they're going to share. I have to trust that. I have to trust that you will share and not hoard information. Because I'm telling you, if you hoard information, you're not going to learn. You're not going to learn by hoarding information. The fact that I'm mentoring this young woman into contracting, I'm sharing that knowledge, and she is feeding into me as well, because her questions means I can better produce a contracting masterclass. It also means that I'm able to be the best mentor I can be to her and other people by sharing with her the blueprint, so that she can ask me questions, so that I can then pad out, inform and educate even more so than I'm doing now. And the more she shares and where she learned it from, the more people become aware of this platform. And the more aware we are of this platform, is the more knowledge. Can you see how the cycle works? I don't have any reason to hoard knowledge. I don't at all. Because someone somewhere taught me. And experience made me learn. That's why I do what I do. So this episode is to also open your eyes to the possibilities. Because unless you know the possibilities exist, how can you aspire and want more? I don't have two heads. You guys know where I started from. I've shared that. I don't have to hide it. And I'm sitting here telling you success is accessible to all of us. It's about whether we choose to do the work, and also if we choose to step into what we deserve and take it. Success is yours for the taking. It's a matter of whether you want it or not. How badly do you want it? Are you willing to do the sacrifice required? So paying for a limited company setup is going to cost you £100. Are you willing to invest that money in yourself? Every time I had to spend certain monies to be able to get where I am now, it's an investment into myself. Some of you don't want to invest in yourself, but you expect people to invest in you. It's bullshit. Dear black women, let's want more for ourselves. Dear black women, we deserve more for ourselves. Dear black women, success is attainable for all of us. Dear black women, we are allowed to live comfortable lives. It's okay to like money. I need you all to know, I like money. I like money because I like nice things. I like the idea that I can see something and I have the choice whether to buy it or not. Not because of anything, but the fact that I can afford it. It's nice to know that you could afford something. If you don't want it, it's because you don't want it, not because you don't have the money. Someone says money isn't everything. Yeah, money isn't everything. But money makes me happy. Money can make me comfortable. And money gives me access to things that make me comfortable. And I like soft life. It's just as simple as that, really. Anyway, it was really important that I recorded this episode. Please share it. Don't hoard it. Don't hoard the information. When the contracting masterclass, contracting interim and consulting masterclass goes live, when it goes live, of course, you all will be the first to know. And I'm hoping within the next few weeks. And if I then decide to have a program of mentoring people into contracting, you guys will be the first to know. And it will be done properly. Yeah, there will be a contract, there will be a fee, there will be deliverables, and there will be objectives. And I run what I do as a business, so everything I touch operates in the same way. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to encourage you all, if you haven't already, to go and listen to previous episodes, because that's how we learn, from previous episodes. If you are new to this podcast, please go and look at some of the show notes so that you can see what topics and themes are covered in certain episodes, and go and listen to them. 9 times out of 10, if you've got a question, I've covered it in an episode. If you have a work-related or life-related dilemma, then email hello@toytalks.com. And more importantly, follow me on social media. I have a Instagram page called Toya_Washington. The Toy Talks podcast Instagram page is Toya_Talks. Of course, I'm on TikTok. My handle is @ToyaWashington. I'm also on Snapchat, Toy Washington. I am also on YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel called At Home with Toya. I love editing and I love being able to put out this content that I have recorded retrospectively in the form of vlogs. So go ahead onto YouTube, At Home with Toya. All the links to my social media and my YouTube channel should be in the show notes as well. Again, if you have a work-related or life-related dilemma, please email hello@toytalks.com. Go ahead and have a look at the website, toytalks.com. And it's a bit about kind of the genesis of the Toy Talks brand. Also, I do public speaking. I won't be doing any new public speaking bookings this year because I have had a child. I'm on maternity. I am creating. I have a business to run as well. And I'm meant to be on maternity and I'm learning to be a new mother. So I made the decision that I will not be taking any public speaking for this year, but if you have some for 2024, then email hello@toytalks.com. I do have a lot of PR companies that reach out to me and brands, and it has to align with the ethos of what the Toy Talks podcast is. And if you think you do align and you have an opportunity that we can all benefit from, then please email hello@toytalks.com. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. I want to thank each and every one of you for sharing the podcast, the platform, reaching out to me in the DMs, emailing me, DMing me on Instagram and on TikTok. And I just want to say that you all motivate me to keep going because you guys benefit from this, you enjoy the content, but more importantly, I feel like I'm making a change in my community, and that's exactly what I want to do. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me here for an episode of the Toy Talks podcast. Make sure you join me again for a brand new episode. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toy Talks podcast.